You're watching Straight to the Point. I'm your host, William J. Gibbs Jr., and I have on the show Jon West, candidate for Nueces County District Attorney. Jon, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Now, Jon, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I grew up in Spring, Texas. I went to Texas A&M College Station. After I graduated Texas A&M College Station, I went to St. Mary's Law School. And I actually took the bar exam while I was in law school. So when I graduated, I went down to Starr County and began my career as a felony prosecutor.
So right now, where do you work?
I'm working over in Jim Wells and Brooks. I've been a felony prosecutor for about 20 years, and I've prosecuted throughout South Texas. I've prosecuted in 10 counties. I've prosecuted for 4 different district attorneys, 2 of which were Republican and 2 of them were Democrats. And right now I'm working for Carlos Garcia, and he is the district attorney in Jim Wells and Brooks County.
What district is that?
The 79th.
79th district.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so why have you decided to run for the Nueces County District Attorney?
Well, because I live here and because I'm raising my kids here, and I'm watching TV and I'm not satisfied with the result of how our criminal justice system is currently being prosecuted. I'm worried about watching TV and every weekend seeing, aggravated assaults or murders that come on TV. And right now I think we've surpassed our highest murder total for the year in the past 20 years. And that's just not acceptable.
And what do you think is attributable to that?
Well, I think when you have different prosecution philosophies, they have different results. Every single thing we do as a prosecutor matters. Every case that gets turned into us matters. Every case that gets turned into us with a victim, they're relying on us to seek justice in a court. And if we don't seek justice in a court of law, then we're basically leaving victims with an alternative or an option of seeking justice in the streets. And that's not acceptable.
So, what in your background prepares you to be the next district attorney?
Well, I've been a felony prosecutor for 20 years, and in that capacity I have been first assistant for several different district attorneys' offices. I've handled every level of felony prosecution. I've handled child protective services cases. I've handled quarantines. I've handled everything that a district attorney's office does. And most of the offices that I've gone into, when I get there, they've had a backlog. So I've developed a method for dealing with backlogs that doesn't sacrifice victims. It doesn't sacrifice the cases. Basically, when I go in, there becomes a finite number of old cases. New cases that come in don't get put at the back of the line. Every place that I've ever been, they take cases in chronological order. So if you've got a 3-year-old backlog, any new case gets put 3 years behind just for simply, the cases that are in front of them.
So, part of your current duties in Jim Wells and Brooks County is border prosecution, correct?
Right, I'm actually the senior border prosecutor for the region, and that entails not only prosecuting cases, but reaching out to law enforcement, offering training, reaching out to area prosecutors, offering training. We have to focus on transnational crime, which basically means there has to be an international or transnational element. That focus is met when we're dealing with gangs, when we're dealing with drugs, when we're dealing with human trafficking. And those are the areas that I really have excelled in my teaching and in my training, is how to prosecute gangs instead of just individual gang members, and how to investigate and put together human trafficking cases.
So tell me what that situation is like currently in Nueces County.
I don't know that they even have a gang prosecution unit anymore. They used to. And I know the prosecutors that were there, and they're very competent prosecutors. They handle things different than I do when I'm prosecuting a gang as opposed to individual gang members, but I don't think they even have a gang prosecution unit right now.
But as far as the border crime itself, what is the situation here?
The situation is we're a primary destination city, and then there's a staging that occurs sending people further to Austin, Dallas, or different areas. So this is a hub of human smuggling and human trafficking, but a lot of it's transitory where they're moving through.
What about other things such as drugs, money, and weapons?
Well, drugs, money, and weapons comes along with it, and as long as there's a low perception of prosecution, there's going to be an increase in drugs, weapons, and other offenses.
So what sets you apart from your challengers here in the primary?
I look out nationally, and I'm really, really concerned with how the criminal justice system is not working, and we can fix it.
With Wix, you can create a professional website that looks stunning. Just go to Wix.com. You can update it and keep it fresh whenever you want. I like changing up the background. It instantly gives my site a whole new look. I constantly add new photos. Here are some of my latest, which I love. Let people find you online. Wix SEO Whiz helps you grab those top search results. It looks amazing.
So what sets you apart from your challengers here in the primary? You've got a challenger, and I believe you have a challenger in the general election too if you get past the primary stage. What sets you apart?
Well, I think everybody has their own backgrounds. You know, everybody, and that's what sets me apart, is I've got 20 years in prosecution. James Gardner is my counterpart, my opponent in the primary. I know that reading up on him, he was a gang prosecutor here for 5 years. I know that he's gone to Afghanistan, and I know that he's currently prosecuting in San Pat, and those are good attributes. I think I have more of a track record, having 20 years prosecution. I've got a diversity in 10 different counties. I'm familiar with all of South Texas. I'm familiar with the transactions. I'm familiar with how the dynamic works from the valley all the way up here, and I think that helps me in training law enforcement and training prosecutors how to recognize the entire case instead of just limited facts.
So what do you think is the single greatest issue facing the district court here in Nueces County?
District court or district attorney's office?
The district attorney's office and it feeds into the district court too.
Right.
So what do you think is the single greatest?
I think the district courts are functional. I think the district courts are handling the cases as they're coming in. I think probably the biggest, greatest obstacle they have is what I would consider a naive perspective on prosecution. They are trying to deal with the backlog by rejecting cases that don't meet a threshold or don't meet a criteria. The problem is every single case matters. Even low-level drug cases, you have to intervene as a prosecutor to see if that person needs help. That, you know, a person with a low-level drug case may have a big drug addiction issue. They may not have resources to get help, and we can provide that through the state, which would then prevent them from spiraling downhill. You end up having low-level drug offenses where people develop a drug addiction and then they spiral down by losing their job or committing thefts or committing violence or becoming violent, and those are things that we could avoid with effective prosecution. The other thing is, just because somebody may have a low-level drug arrest doesn't mean they might not be a violent person. You have to evaluate the offense and the offender to determine what's in the best interest of the community. And shortcuts don't work. Shortcuts don't solve problems. I was reading on, one proposed solution I think in the Texas Monthly in 2016, James Garner said that if he got raises for the prosecutors wouldn't leave, and that way they could handle the backlog. And you know, we don't pay a lot as prosecutors, but we're never going to compete with private industry. We're never going to compete with private salaries. So to say that the solution is to give the prosecutors raises, those are the same prosecutors that created the backlog, and then you're saying pay them more money to solve the problem. I don't see that that is the solution. I think training them how to be more efficient and more effective in handling the cases will reduce the caseloads.
So you say rectifying it would be through training, and how else would you rectify those situations that you expounded upon just now?
Well, right now they've got a woeful shortage of prosecutors in the office. They've got a lot of prosecutors that have left. So the immediate thing coming in would be going to law school and talking to the kids that are graduating and offering them the opportunity to come out of law school and boost their resume. Because their value is their resume, and right now their resume are grades. And some of the kids are going to get, you know, really high-paying salaries because of their grades. But then again, with no trial experience, you give me a kid for 2 years and they're going to walk out and their value is going to double in 2 years. And that's usually what big DA's offices do, is they go to law school, they'll talk with top recruits, and they'll offer them that trial experience. And I think that's a big solution that can happen right away, is to trust these graduating law students with high-level cases. Right now, when an attorney graduates law school and comes over here, they go into intake. And then they spend a couple months there, and they go into misdemeanor. And they spend a couple months there. When I graduated law school, I went straight into felony. And I was competent, and I was able to. And then I realized how important it was to have good, responsible, ethical prosecutors. And you know what? The salary never mattered to me after that. When I got out of law school, I was paid $26,500 a year. I made more money at the ship channel as a pipe fitter helper when I was in high school than when I graduated law school. But once you have that responsibility of protecting people, and once you have that responsibility of people relying on you, your job becomes a lot more than just a salary. And those are the kinds of people that I think we try to attract out of law school and hopefully get them to stick around.
What are your thoughts on more leniency for those who are charged relating to possessions of small amounts of marijuana?
You don't have to worry about discrimination if the jury pool won't allow discrimination.
Hi, my name is Sam. I own a local carpet cleaning company in Oklahoma City called ProX. I use Blip primarily for brand awareness. I think outdoor ads are great for that. Before Blip, I got quotes for billboards that were around $2,000 to $5,000 per campaign. And for a small company starting out, that's sort of out of reach. So I was thrilled when I found out about Blip. I especially like that I can set my own budget. I can change my ad anytime I want to. I had a logo change a while back and I had the new one up and running the same day. So Blip gives a lot of companies access to billboards who otherwise wouldn't have had access to it. So keep up the good work, Blip. Thank you.
Now, you touched on this a little bit with one of our previous questions, but what are your thoughts on more leniency for those who are charged relating to possessions of small amounts of marijuana?
Depends on the circumstances, and it depends on the defendant. Because we don't want to make violent criminals out of nonviolent people. We don't want to send nonviolent people to prison. If we send people to prison, then they perceive that they have no options. If people have no options, if they have nothing to lose, then they become dangerous. So the first thing on any drug case is to try to figure out whether the person, the defendant that you're looking at, is violent or nonviolent. And the second thing is to try to get them counseling. Because if we can rehabilitate somebody that has a drug problem, that is our moral and ethical responsibility, is to take a person that's suffering because of the community because of whatever dynamic they're going through. They may have unemployment, they may have depression, they may have anxiety, they may have, mental illnesses that we can get counseling for and try to get them better. That's our first objective in our criminal justice system, is to try to help people not become violent, not become dangerous, and not have to be incarcerated.
And that dovetails into this question. So drugs and mental health issues continue to steer crimes across the country.
Absolutely.
I mean, a majority of your criminals are in jail because of a drug or mental health issue. So if elected, what are some strategies you will employ to help address this problem here in Nueces County?
Well, we've got really proactive judges on the bench in Nueces County, and they understand different treatment alternatives that they have that they're able to make people go and attend. I've had several conversations with several judges, and their primary focus on nonviolent offenders is treatment. Now, there is a degree of limit on what the state has available. And so I think it's incumbent on us to reach out into the community to find private industry or faith-based services that may be available also. We have a lot of people that are concerned about the homeless issues, that are concerned about the mental health issues and drug addiction issues in the community, but we're not reaching out to them to ask them to help. And I think if we reach out to different faith-based organizations, that they will be happy to try to help out. And we can create a coalition between private and public to try to offer more services and more resources for the homeless, for people that have psychological issues or need counseling or need drug addiction rehabilitation.
So is there anything else that you might like to add for anyone who doesn't know you, who this is their first opportunity to get to know you?
I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I've got 3 small kids. I've got a 3-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 10-year-old. And my philosophy is family first. Family first. Now, my family lives in the community, and so it has to be community first, because we grow up a product of our environment. And I want my kids to be a product of a really, really good, safe environment. I look out nationally, and I'm really, really concerned with how the criminal justice system is not working, and we can fix it. At the core of every criminal justice system is the jury system. And one thing that I've noticed is Nueces County juries are really, really good. They're responsible, they're ethical, they're educated, and they're willing to come and serve. And as long as you have a good jury system, you can have good prosecution. You don't have to worry about discrimination if the jury pool won't allow discrimination. You don't have to worry about disproportionate sentencing if the jury pool doesn't allow disproportionate sentencing. We live in a community that we create, but Abraham Lincoln said that ours is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And nowhere is that more true than our jury system. People say that our criminal justice system discriminates, and it may nationally, but it doesn't locally. We don't have that concern here because we've got a diverse and educated jury pool. We've got a diverse and educated community that reach across barriers to meet each other and see each other as equals. And that's the biggest thing that Nueces County has to offer, and that's what's going to stabilize our criminal justice system where it may not work in other places. But I've told people that Nueces County is the biggest small town that I've ever been in. We knew each other before running into each other here. We've known each other. When I was a prosecutor in Live Oak, you were in Live Oak. And it's really cool how many people see each other and recognize each other and see each other as neighbors in this community, so we can fix what's going wrong.
Jon, thank you for coming on to the show.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time.
For Straight to the Point, this is William J. Gibbs Jr. Have a great day.